At some point in the last 15 years, I somehow became the poop guy. And bile flow is an important part of that equation, and so people ask me a lot of questions about bile flow. And maybe you watched our video on 5 steps to improve bile flow, and you've taken some or all those steps, and you're trying to figure out, have I done it? Have I improved my bile flow? Am I winning? What's the deal? So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some signs to help you understand, have you done enough to improve your bile flow? You don't want to miss this.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
This can be a little bit tricky because there really is no definitive way to know, is my bile flowing correctly? I sort of view it that if a person isn't showing any signs of poor bile flow, that their bile is probably flowing correctly, because that's how a human is supposed to function, and if they're a human, I just assume that that's working correctly. But we're going to kind of look through some of these signs and signals because some of them can be a little bit confusing, and I just want to talk through them with you to make it a little bit easier for you. Now, one thing that's true is that if somebody has significant bile flow issues and they're showing some significant symptoms, well, then it's a lot easier to figure out if they've taken enough steps to improve their bile flow. Some people need a lot more steps than other people, but if they're showing significant signs, then that can be a lot easier to figure out if they've created improvement. And one step that I really like is that you can get these 10-parameter urinalysis dipsticks on Amazon. That's usually the best place to find them. And on those dipsticks, they show bilirubin and urobilinogen. Now, one or both of these issues can show up in somebody's urine if their bile flow problem is pretty significant. I usually see this show up only when the bile flow problem is pretty bad, and they won't show up like a lot. It's just going to show up a little bit on the dipstick, and even a little bit is almost like a confirmation that the person's really having some bile flow problems. Again, these are not diagnostic. You're just trying to get a picture of what's going on. But if someone has a significant problem and that urobilinogen or bilirubin are showing up on those dipsticks, then they can just keep doing steps until those are no longer showing up on the dipstick, and that's a pretty good sign that they've created improvement. So I'm going to put the link to those strips on Amazon in the description below this video just so you can see what I'm talking about. But just know that Amazon kind of changes those links all the time. So if you click the link and it doesn't work, just search on Amazon for 10-parameter urinalysis dipsticks. And sometimes they come in 10 parameters, sometimes it's 11, and some companies do different parameters on there. You just want to look to see, does it have bilirubin or urobilinogen in it? And if it is, you can test those out to see if that's an issue for you. Now, if we're just going to look at the symptoms that we're dealing with and see if those have improved, some will be a little bit more valuable than others. Like if a person has a light-colored stool, like it's lighter than the color of corrugated cardboard, then if they take steps to improve bile flow and their stool starts to get darker, then that's a really good sign that things have improved. And you really want that stool to be like dark, like the color of the forest floor. You know, it wants to be that kind of dark, seedy, kind of good darkness. If it's just a little bit like cardboard, you know, at least that's in the right direction. But when it's dark like the forest floor, that's what you're really looking for. So that can be a really strong sign that a person's made improvement. But you know, light-colored stool is just like an obvious sign of poor bile flow, but a lot of people will have bile flow issues and their stool won't be light-colored, and it can be darker for other reasons. So just don't view a dark-colored stool as like, all right, I nailed it. You might still have some other symptoms that are showing you that bile is not flowing correctly. Another strong sign is if somebody has a loose stool and they start to improve bile flow and the stool slows down and becomes more formed. That's a really good sign that their bile has improved, but just keep in mind that there's other causes of loose stools, so you don't want to view that as some kind of confirming situation. Another sign that can be helpful is if someone has a low saliva pH, like 6.5 or lower, at least 2 hours after a meal. If it's low and then they take steps to improve bile flow, you'll often see that saliva pH come up. Now, they might not if they're on multiple medications. The medications can really lower saliva pH for a lot of people for a variety of reasons. But if someone's not on a lot of medications and they had a low saliva pH, they'll often see that come up when bile starts to improve. If you have nausea issues and that's starting to improve, especially when you're eating fatty foods, when you're getting more dietary fats in that meal and all of a sudden that's not bothering you anymore, that's a great sign that bile has improved enough to help you emulsify and break those fats down correctly. acne and skin issues, that's another strong sign. A lot of times when the bile starts to flow better, now you can emulsify those fats so they're not causing problems and the body's trying to push them out through the skin. So these types of signs are great when someone has them because it's a lot easier to tell if they've created improvement. And one sign I really like is if somebody's having gas and they'll take steps to start to improve their bile flow, and then that gas becomes even more foul. I'm like, all right, things are going in the right direction, because a lot of times if bile has been backed up for a long time, when it starts to move, a lot of those backed up toxins start to come out, and it can kind of make their gas even worse. And so that's usually a sign that things are going in the right direction, and if they continue on, then the gas will not only not be so foul, but the gas should improve. And when things really start to improve, that gas will even reduce and kind of not show up as much. Now, other things that you might experience are a balancing in blood pressure. Like if a person has high blood pressure and they improve bile flow, it'll often come down, and sometimes it'll come down fast. If they're on blood pressure lowering medications, they might need to call their doctor and be like, look, my blood pressure is going too low, can you help me out? Because it's a lot of times when the bile can flow, the body can detox and get that filth out of there, and now that filth is not thickening up the blood and raising the blood pressure. And if someone has really low blood pressure, then when they improve bile flow, now if they have enough stomach acid, they can create that sizzle that happens when the stomach acid leaves the stomach and then the bile meets it, and it creates that sizzle and helps us really get all the minerals out of the food that we're eating. And now the minerals will lift in the system, and minerals help thicken up our blood a little bit and can raise the blood pressure into a good range if it was too low. So improving bile flow can really change blood pressure in either direction, but if you're off base in either way on blood pressure, then that's a good way to kind of monitor how are things going. Some other things you might notice are maybe no more gallbladder pain if you were having gallbladder pains. Maybe you notice that you kind of feel like you have fewer chemical sensitivities. You can walk through down that chemical aisle at the grocery store and it doesn't bother you so much because the body's able to get a lot of that detox toxins out of the body because bile is now flowing. Maybe your skin feels or looks better, or maybe you just feel a little bit lighter. You know, it's definitely possible to lose weight a lot easier when bile is flowing better, but some people might just feel like, you know, I kind of feel just lighter because now that the toxins can leave the body the right way, it kind of takes that burden off and they're not carrying all those toxins around with them. So I've heard more than a few people kind of describe that as like, I don't know, I just kind of feel lighter, you know? So that's something that could show up. You can also check out our video on 10 things that can cause bile sludge and make sure that you've corrected those things in your life so that you haven't taken these steps to improve bile flow, but at the same time, you're still making major mistakes that can really thicken up that bile and you're working against your efforts. Even if you have improved bile flow, if you stop those efforts and you're still doing a lot of wrong things, it's probably gonna get thick right up again, right? I think I just said it's gonna get thick right up again. I don't know what that is. But we'll put the link in the description below for our video for 10 signs of poor bile flow. And if you can go through those and you're not showing any of those signs, then odds are pretty good that you've improved your bile flow and things are going well. Now, if it's taking a little bit longer, just try not to get frustrated with yourself. Just because you're taking the steps that we know improve bile flow doesn't mean you've taken enough steps to improve your bile flow. I've heard from more than a few people that have had to do a little bit of extra effort to really get their bile flowing. So some people are dealing with more severe cases, and in those cases, they're probably going to need to put a little more effort into that. So I hope that helps you figure out if you've taken enough steps to improve your bile flow. And if you haven't seen it yet, jump over and watch our video on 10 things that can cause bile sludge to make sure that you've improved all those issues and you're not making things worse. I can't wait to hear about your results.